1,300 Hong Kong journalists joined the signature campaign.
Chief Executive's unexpected Vice President meeting.
Samonia tsunami death toll may exceed 100.
And Hong Kong-born businessman jailed for US fraud.
The DHK Evening News with Ivan Leung and Amy Blom.
Good evening. More than 1,300 local journalists has joined a signature campaign in the latest protest against alleged mainland police brutality towards three of their colleagues earlier this month. The three journalists were reported beaten by the police in Xinjiang and later accused of inciting unrest by the authorities. The Hong Kong Journalists Association and Foreign Correspondent Club, which organized the campaign, called on the Xinjiang government to investigate the incident, clear the journalists who were any wrongdoing, and stop media repression. They also published an advertisement for 4 newspapers today to outline their demands.
The Chief Executive, Donald Tsang, has held an unexpected meeting with the Vice President, Xi Jinping, who's been tipped to take over from President Hu Jintao in 2012. The meeting took place at a signing ceremony in Beijing to extend power supplies to Hong Kong from the Daya Bay nuclear power plant. Mr. Xi said the Hong Kong government had overcome challenges and maintained stability since the handover.
The Secretary of Security, Amos Lee, has expressed concern over an increased number of young people in the territory being arrested for seriously drug offence. In the first 8 months of the year, that there were 849 such arrests, a 13% rise on the same period last year. There's also been a big increase in the number of seizure of ecstasy and commandment. Mr. Lee put down to the step efforts to tackle the drug dealing.
The Hong Kong senior police officer has told legislators that officers made an error of judgment in ordering drivers to form a roadblock to stop illegal road races. Several people were injured when the racers attempted to crash through the barrier on the Kwang Tung bypass in July. Chief Superintendent Michael DeMade Groves told a security panel meeting examining police efforts to tackle illegal road racing that the decision was a mistake and had contravened procedures.
Some international news: a serious tsunami smashed into the Pacific island nation of America's Western Samoa, killing possibly more than 100 people, destroying villages and injuring hundreds. U.S. President Barack Obama declared American Samoa a U.S. territory, a major disaster, and offering federal aid to help recover the efforts, with C-130 military transport aircraft due to leave Honolulu for the tiny South Pacific island. The New Zealand government says there were serious concern about neighbor islands of Tonga after 4 meters wave hit its northern coast. Tonga officials says at least 5 people have been killed. A Pacific-wide tsunami warning was issued after 8 magnitude undersea quake cuts off the American Samoa. Reports of small tsunami reaching New Zealand and a rising sea level above in several South Pacific island nations. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center cancelled the Pacific-wide warning, but Japanese meteorology agencies issued a warning, the local tsunami warning for its east coast, warning of a possible small tsunami. A Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has later issued an advisory that all small tsunami waves has reached Hawaii, warning the waves that could be dangerous to swimmers and boats.
A powerful typhoon that has hit the Philippines and Vietnam with deadly force is now battering Cambodia, killing at least 9 people. When Typhoon Katsana hit Vietnam, more than 30 people were killed and almost 200,000 people fled their homes. In the Philippines, where the typhoon hit over the weekend, at least 246 people are known to have died.
A Chinese-American businessman and fundraiser for the Democratic Party has been sentenced to 24 years prison for fraud by a court in New York. Hong Kong-born Norman Su, who is 58 years old, was convicted on charges operating an US $80 million pyramid fraud or Ponzi scheme and violating campaign finance laws. Mr. Hu's scam was to attract investments to his 2 companies, Components Limited and Next Component Limited, with promise of guaranteed short-term high returns. In reality, the return was the cash stolen from new investors. He became a supporter of democratic causes, including the presidential campaign of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama to boost his standing and ability to attract further investors. Prosecutor says Mr. Hu's dishonest use of political campaigns were prosecuted by his fraud strike at the very core of our democracy. Judge Victor Marino told Mr. Hu says betrayed the trust of his victims by stealing their money with false promises of fake returns in order to finance luxurious lifestyle. The prosecutor Preet Bharara. He broke the federal campaign finance laws to pump his public profile and boost his victims' relief on phony investment programs. Today's sentence unscores our commitment of sworn and witnesses. Mrs. Clinton and Mr. Barack Obama last year returned all donations linked to Mr. Hu and gave it to charities.
The South African President Jacob Zuma has voiced support for a planned law allowing police officers to open fire on armed criminals without having to wait for them to shoot first. Addressing the commanders of more than 1,000 police stations, Mr. Zuma said police officers must never be trigger-happy, but they had to defend themselves and the public.
2 days before the multi-talks in Geneva, Iran has said it won't discuss what's called nuclear rights. The Iranian due to meet the representative from the UN Nuclear Agency, the IAEA, and the 5 permanent members of UN Security Council plus Germany.
Police in Nepal say a church has collapsed in the east of the country, killing at least 26 people. More than 60 others are injured. Reports say many people had gathered in the town of Dhahran for a Christian conference, and some were spending the night in church.
Now, it's emerged that in Washington, a senior American official extended a visit to Cuba early this month to hold previous unannounced talk with Cuba officials. The State Department diplomat Mr. Williams traveled to Cuba for negotiation on restored direct proposal links.
The African Union has denounced the actions of security forces at an opposition rally in the Guinean capital, Conakry, which opposition leaders and human rights activists say left over 100 people dead. The AU said it strongly condemned the indiscriminate firing on unarmed civilians and other serious human rights violations.
The Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh says a massive increase in nuclear power plant generations over the next 4 decades would help India to reduce its impact on global warming. Speaking at an international conference in Delhi, he suggested that in the future nearly 500,000 megawatts of energy could come from countries' nuclear power plant stations. Correspondent says that more than half of India's electricity generates at the coal-fired power plants, and the dependence on coal will increase as the energy demand grows.
That's it for now. Matt is back with the World News tonight at 7:30. Goodbye.
Yep, bye-bye.